Hey, this is Dave. You're about to watch or listen to my conversation with Richard Broo about troubled projects. We're going to cover what constitutes a troubled project, how they got that way, and what you can do to fix them. Richard is a seasoned project manager who spent a lot of time on both the traditional and the agile side of the house, working with teams and organizations and helping them find a better way to get work done. Before that, I have a few quick announcements. The first one is an ask. It's something I'm very curious about, and that is the question, what is the role of a project manager on a team or in an organization that is heavily invested in AI? Now, arguably, a lot of the work a PM does can be handled in some manner by artificial intelligence. So I'm wondering, in these organizations, on these teams, when your project manager shows up or scrum master, what does that person do all day? How do they help the team and the organization get stuff done? So if you're in that kind of environment, I would love to hear from you. Maybe you can leave something in the comments or send me an email at dave@drunkenpmradio.com. I'd love to know, what is the future of project management in this world of AI? The second thing I want to let you know about is some classes I have coming up. So on April 13th, I'm starting a certified Scrum Master class. And if you're on a team that is dragging work from one sprint to the next or one PI to the next, you need to stop doing that. It's not Scrum's fault, it's your fault. And if you're doing that, there's really no point in even pretending you're doing Scrum, because the whole point is to get something finished that we can get feedback on. If you take my 2-day CSM, I will fix that problem for you. I will show you a way for you and your team to make sure that you stop over planning the sprints, unless you're doing it intentionally, in which case that's just your own fault. But I've got a method I can help solve that problem for you. I also have some other classes coming up. I've got a CSPO class that starts on April 16th. I have a PMP boot camp and exam prep course starting on April 20th, and a PMI ACP boot camp class starting on April 28th. So I've got a lot of things coming up. There's going to be links to all of them in the show notes. If you're interested in learning more about any of them, please do not hesitate to reach out. I am very happy to jump on a call and talk about whether or not it's the right thing for you, how it can help you, how the course runs. Just hit me up. Now, before we jump into today's conversation, I want to let you know about a new program that I have signed up for. It's put out by Marina Alex, and it is called Sway 2.0, the AI and Modern Consulting Blueprint. Later this week, I'll be posting an interview with Marina on the course, on the program, how it works, why it's valuable. I think it's worth my time. I think it might be worth your time too. I've been working in this space a long time, almost 30 years. I've been project manager, scrum master, coach, trainer, consultant, all of it. And I know a lot of people that also work in this space: coaches, trainers, consultants, project managers, scrum masters. And one thing that all of us have in common right now is that we're having trouble finding clients. In the old days of Agile, the clients found you, but those days are very much gone. And it's hard to figure out how to find these people. So that's what the Sway program is going to help me get sorted through. As I go through the program, I'm going to be reporting on it here in the podcast and on LinkedIn. Now, Marina's Sway 2.0 program is focused on business development, and specifically finding clients in the small to medium business area. There's still a lot of work to be done, a lot of people that need help. It's a area with a lot of untapped potential. I've looked through the coursework. It looks like something that's going to help me out. I definitely need help with marketing, and I think that this is going to amp up my business quite a bit, help me find some new clients, or help me find more people that I can help with the work that I do. If you'd like to join me in the program, it starts on April 6th, and in the show notes, you'll find a link to where you can learn more about Sway 2.0, and also Marina has generously offered a 10% discount. If you come through the link in the show notes, you will get a 10% discount on signing up for the course. It begins on April 6th, so that's a pretty quick turnaround. So you're definitely going to want to check it out. I'll be in it, and I hope to see you there. Now, onto the podcast.
If you learn to work the old way, but the new way is what you need, my job's to make that switch from old to new. Something less for you than it did for me. Here on Drunken PM Radio. Whoa! Here on Drunken PM Radio. Whoa!
Hey, this is Dave Pryor. Welcome to the Reluctant Agilist. Today we're going to talk all about trouble. And Richard Broo is here to help us get out of it. So, Richard, thank you for taking time out of your afternoon.
David, thank you for having me.
Richard is also a longtime old school wizened PMP who is working with Agile as well, but Richard focuses on troubled projects. So that's kind of where we're going to start in a few minutes. But Richard, would you mind giving these folks a little bit about your background before we jump in?
Sure. Name is Rich Broo. I've been in business for 48 years. The brunt of my career is General Electric and their plastics division, which is where I picked up a lot of my project management skills and training before I got certified. I currently have my own company called True North PMP Consulting, where I work with small to medium sized companies to help them improve their project management and new product development commercialization processes.
Okay. And I know you focus on troubled projects. So can you talk a little bit about how that part of your business works?
Yes, I usually get a phone call or I get called into small to medium sized companies when they're experiencing some product friction or project issues, whether that be it's over budget, it's over schedule, projects are not delivering all their deliverables, common stuff. And where they've existed all their internal resources to try to figure out root cause, but they're just stuck and they need someone to come in and put another set of eyes on it and to help them figure out, okay, here's the bottleneck. How do we fix this bottleneck? How do we move forward so that the client and their customer meet all expectations?
Okay. This is going to sound a little sarcastic, but I feel like when I face those situations, I walk in and they're taking a flamethrower to their hair and they're going, "My hair's on fire." And I'm saying, "Yes, if you put the flamethrower down, it won't be on fire anymore." And they're like, "Tch, I don't understand." I mean,
Yeah,
you feel like you walk in and it's like super obvious.
you do. And, majority of the time I tell them this is a self inflicted wound.
Yeah.
You didn't have to shoot yourself. I mean,
And you
but
can
let it get to
stop
this
shooting
point.
yourself whenever you'd like. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So, I mean, there's been a big transition in project management in general, I'd say over the past 10 to 15 years. There was, way back in the day, a switch from the more prescriptive approach to an agile approach. That's gone through a lot of different iterations. And I feel like we've hit a point where the problem has shifted a little. And I'm curious if you're seeing some kind of common failure patterns crop up right now.
Yeah, the ones that I see the most of comes down to the beginning of a project. For instance, I have clients that are strictly waterfall.
Hmm.
And they'll follow the cookie cutter plan that you would see in the PMBOK about how you plan a project. And
Yeah.
certain things I think they still miss. The big one to me is scope. Uh, they don't
Okay.
they don't nail it down tight enough, and that's where a lot of the self-inflicted wounds begin.
Okay.
And when I work with a client, I have my approach, and the first thing when I look at scope is, well, what does the customer want? What's in scope? And
Okay.
then I say, what is out of scope? And has this been committed to a piece of paper
Right.
that you and your client will sign and sign off on before you even get to a project charter or project plan? That's the first thing. Because if you don't lock that down in the front end, it's just going to be like cancer all the way through the project. When you get to
Right.
the end, you're going to go, yeah, I didn't get what I wanted. Well, you didn't define what you wanted well enough up front.
Yeah.
The second thing I think they miss is risk planning. Now, a
Okay.
lot of the clients I walk into, have you got a risk plan? Yes, I do. They'll tell me the risk.
Yeah.
Then I'll go, well,
There's a
what?
risk we might not deliver on time, in scope, and on budget.
Yeah. It's like, well, what would trigger that risk? Well, what do you mean? Well, I like plastic injection molders. Well, I knew that the price of steel was going up. Well, what was the trigger? I mean, if you know the price of tool steel is going up, if that's the trigger, why didn't you have your finger near that trigger so you have an
Yeah.
implementation plan, right? So they do planning. I'm not saying they don't, but they don't take it further out, which is what's going to trigger it, what is a firm response to that, and most
Yeah.
who's going to own it? Because if I'm the project sponsor, I may not own it. You may own it. Who's going to own addressing this risk?
So I want to park on this topic for a second because I am right there with you in that I think this is something that people have lost focus on, I'd say over the past 15 years. And it's also where like when people ask me, should I still get a PMP? I'm always like, you should, because this is one of those things you learn that saying, well, that might happen. That's not enough. You need to have trigger points, response plans, mitigation strategies, people owning different things, like all that stuff. But there's nobody sitting around like a project manager would going, well, that's going to break. I mean, that's
Exactly.
a mindset shift.
Exactly. And a lot of these smaller companies, that lies within the engineering department because they don't have a PMP or someone who's a project manager.
Right.
And they approach it traditionally. Well, this is how we've done it all along. great. But the market is changing. The supply chain, the supply chain is changing. You need to be planning for this stuff up front because if that risk comes into your living room, you basically are. You talked about the flamethrower earlier. Now, flame's
Yeah,
in your face now. You better have a plan.
got ugly. Well, how much there's a part of me that wants to lay the blame for that at the feet of Agile because if my focus is we're going to learn as we go. So all that stuff that I would have done up front, all that tightening of scope or risk categorizing and stuff, cataloging, I wouldn't do that in something like Scrum because I'd say, well, it'll appear and then we'll respond when it appears. But if we're using our hybrid approach to hide those things under the rug until they explode, and then we're like, oh, it makes it easier to not act like the sky is falling, I think.
That's correct. And whether you're doing straight waterfall, hybrid, or agile, you cannot ignore risk. Risk will derail you faster than you can fall off your chair. So what I tell my clients is you cannot, I don't care how you want to approach your project. If you are not clearly defining what the risk could be, what's going to trigger them, what your
Yeah.
response is, your flank is open. And if you choose to leave your flank open, you will get attacked.
Okay. So even on, I mean, and I think some agile teams do this. Even on an agile team, you'd want to have somebody who is taking a more pessimistic. Pessimistic doesn't feel like the right word, but I always describe it as a project manager. It's not the glass is half empty or full. It's a fragile object full of liquid that will fall to the floor, shatter, and someone's going to walk in here with bare feet. I have to go get band-aids.
Yep.
Like
Yeah.
that's
No,
how
I
we
agree to
we
that.
learn to think.
I would
Uh,
agree to that.
which is painful for the people around us, maybe, but for me, it makes me feel a lot safer.
You're correct.
What do you think is one really common thing that people? I mean, are those the two main things? Is the scoping and the risk that are the
The scoping and the risk. The other thing that I coach my clients on is the budgeting aspect of things.
okay?
I see a pattern where some of the smaller, medium-sized they're going in a little light on budget. What I found, I have recently a client that said, "Well," I said, "How did you come to this number?" Well, I went into ChatGPT, I explained what my
Yeah,
project was, and it said I should be able to do this for X amount of dollars. I said, "Okay, think of that as the ideal condition from and getting an answer from someone who's nothing about your business, nothing about your supply chain, nothing about how you're set up to do your business." So, I said, "You really need to take what you were told and then you need to go back to your team and get them involved to do a bottoms up or something because that number is ideal state and ideal state is not going to happen here."
yeah. I feel like every time people say, "Well, I opened up ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude or whatever," unless they already know how to do the thing that they're getting the AI to do, it's really scary.
It is because a lot of these people that are using it are just plugging in what they want, a question without all the qualifiers around that question. And
Yeah,
even then getting all those qualifiers and that question in there, that's just one data point. That should not be the sole data point. You've got to go back into your organization now and say, does this one data point even correlate anywhere roughly compared to a similar project that we've done here that I can remotely trust this number?
yeah.
I don't see people trying to make that connection again.
So it almost sounds like, and maybe this is a thing too. So I feel like a project manager spends a lot of time thinking about those things, worrying about those things, making sure they're not going to get caught. Because every time you get pantsed on something like that, like why is the budget like this? Like I don't know, it's what the software said. You learn really quickly that you can't do that, and it's almost like, in my opinion, our project managers are not taught to do that. I don't know if they're taught to do that anymore. I don't see that happening anymore. Do you?
Not in total. I mean, when I got my 12, 15 years ago, when I got my
What
PMP,
edition of the PMBOK was it?
oh God, four?
Okay, I
I
was on
think we're up,
3. So we're in the same zone.
yeah. So I
Yeah.
think we're up, we're at eight.
8. Yeah, the new one's 8. Yeah.
So, everything was, the test to me was based on what the PMBOK wanted you to answer on that
Right.
test. So it was very mechanical. It's like when I went to college and I took biology, what the book said, you put on the piece of paper, you got the grade, right?
Yeah.
I think what we're discussing here, these are things a project manager has to learn and pick up very quickly because we have the framework, but that's just the framework.
Right.
Within that framework, you have to color it. And by color it, I mean you have to figure out, this may be my framework, but I have to dig deeper now on cost or schedule or scope. This is what really matters.
Right.
Framework's just there to help me think a little bit.
Okay. So is it a failure of process or people when you see it happen?
I think it's more people. When I talk to clients about project management, I tell them it's one third common sense, it's one third logic, and it's one third process discipline. The common sense is you know what you want to do, why you want to do it, and what the results should be. That's good.
Yeah.
The logic is how am I going to get from point A to point B?
Okay.
Okay. So that's your plan. The process discipline is playing the plan. And again, the plan is based on a framework. You have to color that framework, as I've said, with what is the ultimate scope here?
Yeah.
What is the budget? What is the schedule? And that's part of learning. I mean, I made a lot of mistakes as an early project manager. I'm sure we all do when we start out. But through that learning, you figure out this is how I really need to consider cost. This is how I really need to consider risk. This is how I need to consider quality. All the things that we find in the PMBOK, it's just the
Yeah.
framework, but you have to be astute enough to start to color it.
So there's this voice in my head because I'm a CST as well. The agile voice is going, "Oh my God, it's so old school and so restrictive and so waterfally and controlling, and we're going to learn and evolve together." And I think that that's right. But I also think that if you don't have all the things you just described, if there isn't somebody thinking about that, you're putting everybody at risk. So you don't have to always listen to that voice. But I think having that voice in the background, somebody there who's watching that stuff, who's thought about that stuff and advocates for that stuff, it just creates a much safer space.
Yes, it does. And I think, yes, as a people, a process, my goal is to help my customers become more sustainable in what they do, whether it's agile, waterfall, or hybrid. And what I deal with the leadership of these companies, because they're the ones that call guys like you and I in,
Yeah.
is I help them to understand the fact that if you want to become sustainable and we're better that you do, you have to be, you have to have some diligence, some governance, some diligence that when
Okay.
you start projects, because you and I, for CEOs or COOs, and we're asking for these projects to be done, we have a fiduciary and a personal responsibility to the people that we're entrusting with this to provide them that guidance. We have
Right.
to be smart enough to provide that governance and guidance because you're ultimately the one that will pay the price, not the project manager of the team.
Yeah. That's a big part of it too. Okay. So I know that when you go into companies, you do assessments and you look at how they're practicing whatever their management process is for projects. Would you mind kind of walking through how those assessments
Sure.
go real quick?
Sure. If I'm dealing with a client that is primarily waterfall, I have put together a system where I go through each of the elements in waterfall project management. So I start with I start with governance first.
Okay.
Do you have any governance here? How do you run your projects? And I try to extract from the leadership and the workers why is this governance? How do you do this? Then I take right down the list. I talk about scope and how scope got together. I talk about how you do the budget, and I have a tick list of questions that I ask, and there's a grading system. And at the end of the assessment, I go right down. I say, okay, bottom line is this is where you're deficient. This is where you're very good. Let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater. But this is where you need some improvement. These are your bottlenecks. And these are the things you can do to fix these bottlenecks. And it's very much based on the framework of the PMBOK because to me, if you're doing waterfall, there's your framework. The PMBOK will give you the framework. Again, you have to
Right.
color it. I'm interested to see how you're coloring it and what color you're putting in there. When I walk into a account that's hybrid, I try to
Mhm.
discern what is agile. What are you trying to do from an agile standpoint here? For instance, I had a
Okay.
customer who was trying to develop a new heat conductive plastic film that's never been done before. And so they were using agile for that part of it, but they were using traditional Waterfall for everything else, as far as the boat.
Okay.
So it's like, okay, so we have these two different systems going, if you will. How do they connect? Where's the breakdown? Is it on one side or the other, or is it in the connection of those two systems?
Okay.
If it's an agile account or a company, again, I stay very much on the agile principles and I quiz them very hard on how do you do agile planning? Do you at least have an agile, high level agile charter? Okay. Do you, any way, shape, or form, break down this project into user stories, features? And what do you mean a user story? User story. What's the
Yeah.
feature? Okay. What are the tasks to get to that feature? Well, yeah, we do, but is it on a piece of paper somewhere?
Yeah.
So I try to walk them through what Agile is and how, the right way to use it.
Okay.
I try to unconfuse them when they're trying to put Waterfall into Agile because I said,
That would never happen.
yeah, I said, these are like two different children. I got two sons. One is like Mr. Military Straight and Narrow. I got another one that's like Pee Wee Herman. I mean, that's just the way it
Yeah.
is.
I always describe it as one's like classical music and the other's like jazz.
Yeah,
But I think the thing that often doesn't get focused on is either way there's a framework or a process, and you may not have to do every step of it, but I think my experience has been on the agile side that people don't feel as dependent on process. Whereas as a project manager, I do kind of lean up against it, which is good and bad. It's bad when it allows me to be lazy, but
right,
it's good because it is the harness that I'm like that keeps me safe.
right, right. And, you called me old school. You and I got it.
I'm old school. Yeah.
Right. I mean, you have to have some degree of governance and process. I don't care if it's agile, okay,
Yeah.
it's hybrid or what you got to have something to work from.
Okay. So now I want to check on this thing that I'm seeing. I want to see if you're seeing this as well. So I'm seeing a thing in a lot of companies where there's organizations that try to do waterfall, but they didn't have the structure, the discipline, the governance to do it. So agile became the thing they were going to chase. And they sort of chased it, but not all the way. And they kind of waved their hands at a lot of stuff and adopted some of the practices. But now they've reached a point where they can't do the old way. They can't really do the new way. And a lot of them I'm seeing are reverting to like Excel to manage their task lists. And there's like a complete collapse of any ability to manage project work. It's like it's like even what was there when I started is gone.
Yeah. I'm seeing some of the companies I've dealt with have tried to adopt agile, and they'll say it didn't work.
Yeah.
Well, you can't. Okay, it didn't work. Why? Well, it just didn't fit the way we do things. Well,
Yeah.
how did you do things before? To your point, well, we used Excel, or the other one I like is, well, we just bought Jira and Trello. We figured we could use the software to get us through. Well, no, it's a tool. Okay, that
Yeah.
doesn't mask the wound. So I see somewhat of that. And I get really upset when people say, well, Agile failed. It failed because you didn't understand that there is being Agile and there is doing Agile. I said, you're trying to do Agile. You're trying to play the cookie cutter game when
Yeah.
Agile allows you some freedom, but it's still structured. You have to understand that.
Yeah.
And if you're going to apply Agile to a traditional waterfall project because you thought Agile was the way, it's not going to work
Yeah.
because that's not what the project is calling for. You use what the project is calling for.
I think that's a really important point. So can you say a little bit more about that? Like when people are if they're starting out a new project now, how do they make sure that they know which approach to take?
That comes back to my scoping conversation a couple of minutes
Okay.
ago. I walk into your company, you say, oh, I don't make project X, a widget and digit, and this is what it has to do. Well, there's some questions behind that. Does the existing technology already on the shelf to do this? Do you
Right.
have the vendor base to do this? Do you have the resources to do this? Has this been done before at all within your company? And if you say to me, well, we've got it like maybe 60% figured out, but 40% of it, we got to figure that out, that 40%. Okay. So I try to play the dumb kid from New Jersey. So how are you going to figure that out? And he said, well, we haven't quite Well, I guess we're just gonna go use, what we're doing all along, which was just doing the engineering work and we'll get there. I said, no, no. I said, you're going out into the great ether, the great beyond to figure out 40%. Okay.
Okay.
If you can't tell me that you're at least 95% sure this has all been done before and you can do it with existing technology and vendor base, you're approaching the agile world
Okay.
because you are going to go out and try to figure something out that perhaps nobody's done before, or at least
Right.
your company hasn't done before. Now, I would like to have a conversation about the right approach to your project.
Okay. So there's a lot of hype about AI. A lot of companies are trying or not trying to adopt it. People are using it or not using it in company in sanctioned or unsanctioned ways. I'll say, as a project manager, I have still struggled with figuring out my place within that sphere because I don't expect to be the guy writing prompts. I'm wondering if you could just, for the project managers that are listening, what are you learning about AI? Like, where are you focusing yourself?
Right now, one thing about AI, there's so many new tools coming to the market. You can get confused in 3 seconds. And what I have learned is just to concentrate on tools that you really need. So for instance, yes, I do use Claude. I do use Notebook LM for deep research.
Okay.
Yeah, I have the pretty stuff like Canva. I use Perplexity, but use the tools for what you're trying to figure out.
Okay.
It's just a whole daunting area, and it's just moving at such a fast pace. And so, I mean, I've walked into clients that have just taken on some new AI stuff, and like, we'll just stay with chats, chat GB, excuse me. They'll just prompt in questions to try to get answers. And so I have to remind them, if that's what you really want to use, this is how you have to prompt properly to get a more accurate answer. But please keep in
Okay.
mind the answer you get has no humanistic element to it. It's
Right.
strictly mechanical. So I'm all for using AI tools. I think they make our lives easier as project managers. But
Okay.
I have to remind people, don't I've been there, I am there still in some things. Don't, be like the disco ball, the next shiny thing to bring in. Just use what you need and integrate it as you need it. But it's not going away, and it does make our lives easier if we know how to use it.
Well, I think what you said about having to be able to show people how to write better prompts, like that is an argument that would tell me I do need to learn how to be very good at that. I've just sort of the whole time been like, that's it's like writing code to me. I mean, I know it's not, but it kind of the mental process to me seems similar. And I don't it's not work that I feel like is my wheelhouse. So I'd rather let somebody who wants to do it do it.
It's not that hard. I mean, I've taken courses in AI prompting, and they're all the same. It's basically the quality, the integrity, and the conciseness of the prompt will give you a better quality, more concise answer.
Okay.
It's really not that hard. It's really not that hard.
Okay.
And then the other thing I see is people. I just got off an engagement last July with the company. They had no project scheduling method whatsoever. And they wanted a very, very big consulting company, multi-billion-dollar company, and they
Right.
brought in Jira and Trello and Asana. They had each different.
Why all of them?
Yeah, there were 3 different product groups, okay? It was a
Okay.
building construction material company, and I sat there and I said, you do realize that you're asking a finite amount of engineers to learn 3 different software programs and report in 3 different ways." I mean,
Well,
talk ab
and 3 different software programs that don't help them do their job.
right. I said,
Yeah.
all it is for you as a main consultant in here is a reporting structure that you can send something back up to the higher ups that have brought you in here. And I see companies doing that too. Well, let's try Jira. Okay, well, I like Monday.com. Okay, bring in Monday.com. Just stick to one tool and learn it. If it's right for the project, stick to one tool and learn it standardized. That's the one
Okay.
thing I learned at General Electric when it came to new product development. Standardize the process. Things go a lot smoother.
Okay. If it is a project management traditional application, are there any things that must be present for you to feel like it's worth using?
Ease of use, number one, because we're all human beings and we all have so much capacity to learn new things while we're doing what we're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
So if it's not intuitive and ease of use,
Okay.
I don't
You're
like
not
it.
going to put in the
When
effort.
I do Scrum, I like Scrum Band. I like going to a board with a team and
Yeah.
visually seeing that whole project right there laid out. And,
Okay.
you know, that is very intuitive. That is very easy.
What about, you just gave me another question. You go into an organization that has Waterfall and Scrum and some Kanban all at the same time. They need a way to look at all the work. How do they see the work together when you're going to be measuring it three different ways?
You're not going to see all the work. That's the problem
Okay.
because what I have found is those that want certain, shall we say, software packages,
Yeah.
it's usually politically or individual for department driven.
Okay.
And I get sick to my stomach when I look in a company and see that because it's like you're confusing your people,
Yeah.
you're quelching their productivity, and you're not making it easy for them to see what's going on. And I had approved that once a company, and I brought everyone together, and I said, "Yeah, we're confused about what Dave's doing over here in that project, and I'm on this
We know how
project.
he is.
And by the way, I have to hand off to him at some point."
Hmm.
Well, I laid it out on a Kanban board, and I brought everybody. See how easy this is? Can you see how easy this is?
So common sense and making it as simple as
Yeah.
possible.
The old KISS principle: keep it simple,
Yeah.
stupid.
Okay. Cool. So if people want to get in touch with you, what is the best way for them to do that?
They can get hold of me via my LinkedIn profile, which is Richard Broo, Broo. They can also get hold of me via my website, www.truenorthpmpconsulting.com.
Awesome. Thank you. Now, I have one final question for you. If you had to pick any fictional character from a book, from film, or from TV who is representative of the project manager that you wanted to be or want to be in your life, who is that?
That's a very interesting question. I think if we go way back when I started, it would be Clint Eastwood because that guy was
Damn.
that
Clint
guy
Eastwood from what movie?
that guy was by the book the whole way.
Okay. You want like Dirty Harry? You want the man with no name? You want
Dirt,
with the monkey?
I know the one where he was the Marine DI, whatever that one was, where he had to bring up Marine recruits back in the line, and I
Uh,
forget the name, but he I just
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
I
Was it
just
Heartbreak
like
Ridge?
yeah, I think that
Okay.
was, but he was the epitome of me of like, man, there's a by the book, no nonsense, let's get to it.
All right. Cool.
And as I learned over time, a little bit of Pee Wee Herman crept into me, and I said, well, you don't have to be so rigid.
A little fun. You can make it fun
So
too.
a little fun. And I guess today, who would I pick? That would be my alter ego. I would have to say that would be a gentleman that you may or may not know of. His name is Ian Bragg,
No.
Bragg.
Who's
He's a
that?
comedian out of California, but he's just got this whole rapport about him that's just so relaxing and so easygoing, and he gets people to open up. And so
Awesome.
I'd love to buy Ian dinner.
Well, maybe Ian's listening and Ian will take you up on that.
Okay.
Cool. Thank you very much for your time, Richard. I really appreciate it.
David, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
If you learn to work the old way, but the new way's what you need, my job's to make that switch from old to new. Suck less for you